Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. Monroe County Health Administrator Penny Caudill mentioned continued increases in COVID-19 cases could lead to more restrictions during the November 6th COVID-19 press conference. She advised the community to avoid social gatherings.
And when I say crowds, I'm not just talking about crowds of 1,000 or 100. That crowd could be unmasked, undistanced people of 10 or 20 or 50. Stay home when you are sick. Don't be potentially spreading this to other individuals.
Caudill reported most positive cases arise from family and friend gatherings. She stated an increase in the daily moving average of cases.
Our daily moving average of cases is increasing. Today, I think it was 40. If you looked at that last week, it was in the 20s. And I wasn't thrilled with it in the upper 20s because that was still higher than what it had been. When we look at our cases per 100,000, last week it was at 107 and this week at 154. So if you like that metrics map that the state has, it's very concerning to me that we may not stay in yellow if we continue this trend.
President of Indiana University Health South Central Region, Brian Shockney, encouraged anyone who is experiencing sickness to seek care. He reported a high severity of cases at the hospital from delayed visits. County Emergency Management Director Allison Moore reported on the 2020 blood drives.
The next blood drive we have in November is the 19th. It's our evening drive, the hours of 2 to 7. There are still 11 spots remaining, so it's almost full, 3/4 of the way or better, but there are 11 spots. You can register for one of those spots at the redcross.org website. That information is also on our county website. And we have now saved, with the blood that's been collected through the county drive, the COVID county drive, we've collected enough blood to save 1,000 lives. So that is super awesome. That was our 2020 goal, and we are only to November and have already met that goal. So that's amazing news. I'm super excited to share that, and we will continue to try to fill our November and December drives and continue to collect that blood since there is such a shortage in our area.
During the conference, Indiana University Assistant Vice President for Strategic Partnerships, Kirk White, reported students who hosted large parties have been suspended.
We have suspended students across the spectrum for hosting these large parties. We've suspended Greek students, we've suspended athletes, we've suspended off-campus and residence halls living students. We can't have this kind of irresponsible activity. And when we find it, we will find out who's responsible, and you will be summarily suspended from Indiana University. We've already done it in significant numbers this semester, and we'll continue it. If you are found to be responsible this late in the semester, you'll be suspended for next semester. That's all there is to it.
Caudill said newly implemented compliance officers would help educate residents and guests of county regulations. The Bloomington Utilities Service Board approved an agreement with Henry P. Thompson Company for on-call services. Purchasing manager Cindy Shaw spoke during their November 9th meeting.
This is a 3-year term, so it will be $30,000 annually for the next 3 years. They do a lot of work at our plants on pumps and engineering systems.
Shaw said the contract amounted to $30,000. Ellisville Town Council discussed COVID-19 personnel policy-related changes for town employees. Attorney Darla Brown spoke about employer travel restrictions and prevention measures during their November 9th meeting.
If someone travels to a hot spot and they come back, you can change their schedules, you can reassign them so that they're not around the other employees, or they're around the other employees as little as possible. You can require them to get COVID tests when an employee comes back from a hot spot. The town has to pay for the test, and the town also has to pay for the employee's time to go get the test. You can require an employee to quarantine, but if you do, You can also ask them to use their PTO time. So those are just some ideas I had.
Councilmember Scott Oldham mentioned any length of quarantine could be required by an employer as long as the employee is paid for that time. Brown argued Oldham's point, in which the employer could instead require the employee to use paid time off.
Obviously, if they've been exposed to COVID, or they have a test result, or they're under some order somewhere from some entity saying they have to stay home, then they qualify for the 14 days extra pay under the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act.
Right, but say we know that there's an exposure, or say for whatever reason the employee wants to return to work, but we don't want them back at work because of that exposure just yet. We can hold them off as long as we don't force them into burning their own PTO time. We're okay. Is that correct?
Well, I would want to look into that, because I do have some questions about whether or not the town can just go ahead and pay them for not working because they took a vacation if there's no COVID issues.
Town manager Michael Farmer presented concern for multiple town employees taking COVID-related leave at the same time. Oldham mentioned protection of employees must be a priority.
At a certain point, you've got to have some ability to protect the manpower asset and not put everybody together. I mean, a good example is, we get the guys, one of them gets exposed, doesn't know, and all of a sudden they've infected the entire street department, the entire utilities department, and now everybody's on the shelf. Well, who's running the plant and who's plowing the snow? I mean, we've got to have some ability to, I guess, put firewalls in place, personnel-wise, so that not everybody gets exposed and we're left with enough people to work the town.
Oldham suggested a uniform policy to be used for all town jobs. Councilmember Dan Swafford said he was not comfortable telling people where they could or could not travel to during their time off. The council agreed to approve policy changes at a later meeting. Also during the meeting, Farmer presented the final location approval for the new utility maintenance building.
I think everyone's on board to prepare the original site that we proposed, that is, I don't know how to describe it, except at the end of the gravel drive behind the town hall. The most important thing about the site that we prepare for me is it is on our property, and it is out of sight of the town hall and some future considerations we have for parks and recreation. And it should be noted that we will have to clear cut quite a few trees to prepare the site.
Farmer reassured only absolutely necessary trees would be cut for building construction. And we'll have more Cats Week after this message.
Do you know that thousands of children go without school supplies every day? Teachers Warehouse is a 100% volunteer-powered organization. We service the educational and creative needs of students in Monroe, Brown, Greene, Lawrence, and Owen counties by distributing school supplies free to the teachers. Teachers Warehouse is composed of 7 rooms filled with books, pencils, paper, and even tools to motivate students. If it's in a classroom, we'll supply it. To donate new or gently used school supplies or volunteer, give us a call at 812-929-7522 or email us at contact@teacherswarehouse.net.
Welcome back to Cats Week. During the November 9th City Bloomington Planning Commission meeting, zoning planner Eric Grulich presented a rezone request for 87 acres at 3100 West Fullerton Pike from planned unit development to mixed-use corridor. Grulich said the site is undeveloped.
As I mentioned, we're trying to be consistent in zoning of properties and following the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan has this site designated as employment. Within that area, it's highly encouraged, obviously, to have a lot of high employment uses, professional business offices, flexible tenant space, research and development centers. So certainly the large size of this property and the closeness to I-69 makes this an ideal location for those employment uses, with the ease of access. So we're not sure really if commercial uses and high uses like that are what we want to see here, that are not consistent with our comprehensive plan.
Grulich said the petitioned rezone would not complement the comprehensive plan. He mentioned the petitioner does not have immediate development plans. However, Grulich said typical mixed-use corridor zoned developments would not be suitable for the site.
What was kind of envisioned for this property with the sensitive environmental features was a set of uses that really gravitate more towards taller buildings, not one-story retail buildings, which is what you typically find in the MC district, but more taller buildings, parking, keep things up along the street, maximize the preservation on the site that's necessary. So, those are other things to really kind of keep in mind as in terms of what this should be zoned. The mixed use commercial district has big box retail, medium retail, the vehicle uses, car washes, truck stops. Those are not necessarily the things that are appropriate at this location.
Commissioner Flavia Burrell asked Grulich what the city is attempting to avoid by not favoring the rezone. Grulich mentioned avoidance of low employment and developments and favoring uses which create high employment. Commissioners forwarded the hearing to a second meeting on December 14th. The Bloomington Board of Public Works discussed an uphold order to repair an unsafe structure on West 11th Street. During their November 10th meeting, Assistant Attorney Daniel Dixon stated the home was wrongfully approved for demolition.
Since that order to remove was approved, there's been some subsequent action in some lawsuits related to this property where it's my understanding that the individuals that were present and requesting the removal do not have the legal authority to do so and do not have the legal right to this property. And so at that point, Hand rescinded the order to remove and then issued an order to repair, it being the understanding at that point in time that the spouse of the decedent wished to continue to either occupy the property.
Attorney Alfonso Mans said the property owner died and the property was left to Catherine Mobley. Mans said Mobley is unable to work and is in need of housing.
At this point in time, she doesn't have housing, even though she's applied, as I understanding, with the housing agencies here in Bloomington, and they've got her down the list, substantially down the list, something like 300. I've asked her to give them notification of her situation. She is disabled partly by the fact that she can't see or read. She has those real skills. So we have a widow who is living in a home and has no other place to live, even though she's getting some assistance from one of her stepdaughters, who's still living in the house. She's having problems maintaining the property. She has people trying to help her keep it grass cut and things of that nature. She's even having problems with that because she has no money. I've asked her to submit an inventory of the assets, but they're not very little she's been able to sell at this time to raise some money. So she has not even paid the fee for a bond to verify her acceptance and appointment as personal representative of the estate.
Mans requested the Board of Public Works rescind their order and allow time for Mobley to find housing. Mobley said she would allow demolition.
I've applied for Bloomington Housing Authority, and right now I'm 347 on the list, and that went up from 360. Went down from 300 and almost 70 in just a few months. So it just might not take long to be able to get into housing. And then yeah, like I said, the house either needs to be repaired or torn down. And since I can't repair it, then it needs to be torn down.
Board member Dana Palazzo clarified Mobley could remain in the home during repairs and the cost of repairs would become a lien on the house at time of sale. Board members unanimously approved the uphold with review of repair or demolition in 60 days. Further board discussion must be held if demolition is requested. Assistant Director of Sustainability Lauren Travis reviewed the Bloomington Climate Action Plan during the November 10th Commission on Sustainability meeting. Travis stated the action plan will move Bloomington toward carbon neutrality by 2050. She reported emission reduction strategies were created by a series of focus groups.
The categories are mitigation, so reducing pollution across transportation, energy, waste management, water, and then also adaptation. So the adaptation ones are more qualitative ways that we can improve the quality of our adaptation, our response to climate change, and those are in food and agriculture, health and safety, green space, and a new category, climate economy. So green economic development. And that's really also being responsive to the current recession that we're in.
Travis said there are goals, strategies, actions, metrics, and benefits listed for each category. She mentioned a citywide desire for increased solar energy and energy efficiency. Travis said the plan is now available on the city website for review.
If you go to the sustainability page, and this is a draft, you can find the draft action plan. And if you scroll down, each individual chapter is linked. I will be doing just a broad overview. If you've spent more time in each category, we can answer that, any questions that you might have at that point in time. At the bottom here is a feedback form. That's just a way to collect any feedback people might have. It then redirects to a SurveyMonkey site. If you click on it, there's just some broad questions, both demographic and otherwise, in relation to whether you support individual actions in the plan, and then whether you support the overall goals, as well as an open response.
Commission member Dave Rollo requested a letter of recommendation to City Council be drafted for the Climate Action Plan and reviewed at their December 2nd meeting. The Monroe County Stormwater Management Board discussed a system fee increase during their November 10th meeting. The current fee is $35.16, last raised in 2013. County Attorney Dave Schilling said counties similar to Monroe are run on a higher fee.
I would say that just looking around the state, most of the counties with populations like Monroe County are in the $70 range for their stormwater fees. So it's not out of line, that's for sure.
While board member Tron Enright Randolph stated he wanted to hear more public input before he voted. Highway Director Lisa Ridge said their current rate is not sustainable.
Everyone has thrown out that they want an inspector in the county. It's a dire need for the county, but Stormwater can't afford taking on more personnel, more projects, and sustain. We just can't do it. If we tried to do one of those big projects, we would be broke.
Board members approved a fee increase to $75.77. The Stormwater Management Board will hold a public hearing to approve the fee increase before recommending council approval. Assistant Director for the Arts, Sean Starowitz, presented an update of the John Waldron Arts Center to the Bloomington Arts Commission during their November 11th meeting. He said a task force was launched to recommend the future of the building.
Maya Michelson and Valerie Pena are the task force kind of co-chairs. There was a nomination form that was sent out. I think I sent it out to a few folks. I know the BAC will have representation at some level. I'm not sure what that should be decided by the end of the next week. But there'll be, a variety of community stakeholders.
Starowitz said an Indiana University graduate class expressed interest in the building for an economic development project. And we'll have more Cats Week after this message.
for hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to CATSweek. The Bloomington City Council Public Safety Committee continued their discussion on an ordinance to create a Community Advisory on Public Safety Commission during their November 12th meeting. Committee member Isabel Piedmont Smith said the commission was proposed in response to public concerns for safety.
So our goals with this commission is to look at non-police alternatives to public safety challenges, to look at public safety perceptions among marginalized community members, and to look at evidence-based interventions from other cities and whether they could work here.
Piedmont Smith mentioned 11 members would form the commission. She clarified the City Council Public Safety Committee would review all applicants and the council as a whole would vote on the appointments. She explained the commission duties.
To gather data about how marginalized groups feel about and experience public safety, to research various approaches and explore best practices to improve public safety, especially outside the scope of law enforcement, to make recommendations to city government, and to promote a broader view of public safety through outreach efforts.
Piedmont Smith said the committee would contain many demographics. Committee member Sue Scambaluri questioned the power of a commission.
Commissions only, as written here, only have the power to make recommendations, though. They don't have the power to move money around. We have some commissions that do. So we have the Redevelopment Commission, Public Safety, can set policy, but this is an advisory group. So what I'm struggling with is certainly it creates a venue, but overstating it to say that it empowers, I guess, is that when there's no money attached to it or anything like that. I mean, could you help me think about that? Is my broad question.
Well, I think the comparison I had in mind was with a focus group. Because a focus group, you make the plan, you have an idea, and you're just asking them for feedback. Whereas in this case, we are asking the commission to come up with the ideas.
Committee member Jim Sims mentioned no minority demographics were involved in the commission creation. Community member Vox Booker spoke about his support for the commission formation.
The notion that Black folks weren't involved in the beginning in creating this process. Frankly, Councilors Flaherty, Scambaluri, Sandberg all ran against marginalized people, and our community, which includes Black people, voted to make them the representatives. You are the voice that will speak for a multitude of people. I want to make sure that we aren't shirking any responsibilities to act. We can say that this is a national issue, but it's very much a local issue. Excuse me if my patience is short on the subject. Many of you understand why, But Bloomington is not a liberal mecca. Our community has seen racist attacks, and I'm not just talking about myself. It's not the first or the third time that a racist incident has happened in Bloomington. Many of you have been counselors for years, and we haven't adequately taken this on. I understand that the mayor is doing the commission. I understand that the county is taking things, but we all need to make sure that we're putting all hands on deck to adequately tackle this social issue.
Committee members passed the ordinance to full council to be heard on November 18th. The final committee vote was a 3-1 vote, with Piedmont Smith voting yes and others voting to pass. The Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission reviewed the Johnson Creamery Stack redevelopment during their November 12th meeting. Landowner Mike Cordaro described plans for the property.
Our plans for the building are to basically keep operating it as an office building, and then we had submitted plans and got approvals for a multi-unit mixed-use development to the north. So we are planning on constructing 60 units and 2,500 square feet of retail along the B-line.
Cordaro stated the smokestack faces deterioration and is in need of substantial repair. He said the stack is a public safety risk and suggested a full redesign. Owner Ryan Conan suggested potential new design utilizations.
But you also kind of look at, smokestacks historically. It was kind of the 19th or early 20th century power generation system, and so we started what's the 21st century, response to that? And so we started to look at, can you start to coat these things, or, put up a new tower with solar panels, so it becomes a renewable source of energy as opposed to kind of the burning of coal.
Commissioner Duncan Campbell said the new tower would still require maintenance.
I'd like more clarity on the decision that, well, we're going to have to maintain it, so let's get rid of it and build something else, which we're also going to have to maintain. And you're going to have to maintain the building as well. It doesn't resonate with me without seeing the numbers, and I'd like to see the structural report, because I really think this, I'll just be honest with you. I think building another building in the parking lot of the Johnson Creamery is a damn shame. And just screams unfair to this historic building, which has been such an important part of this community.
Sturbaum said the original Johnson stack would enhance historical significance around the new development and suggested a local designation to prevent demolition. During the November 12th City Council Administration Committee meeting, Bloomington City Attorney Philippa Guthrie presented an ordinance to create a separate engineering department.
The engineer really manages projects that are not just planning related or transportation traffic related. He is the city engineer, or she is the city engineer. So I think part of the rationale was that having a separate department that reports directly to the mayor, that way the engineer is not going through another department head. It gives the engineer a little more authority to service the other departments equally. And it also gives that department control over its own budget, which is another important thing.
Council members unanimously recommended do pass to the council at whole. And that is all for Cats Week. Thank you for joining us. For Cats and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.